It's strange how something so small, barely a flicker in time, can get lodged so deep in your memory that it never really leaves. A touch, a look, a half-second pause. That's all it was. But that moment cracked something in me, and I think some part of me knew, even if the rest of me wasn't ready to believe it. It was the night of Emily's company banquet. One of those mandatory fun events corporations throw at the end of a quarter, hosted in a quiet upscale club just outside the city. Golf course views, fireplace lounges, finger foods that cost more than full meals. I hadn't planned to go originally. Work had me stretched thin, and I'm not exactly the life of the party type. But Emily had asked me to come. Insisted, even. So I wrapped up late at the office, changed in the car, and showed up about 40 minutes after the thing started. I walked in expecting to see her already floating from group to group, wine glass in hand, charming the room like she always did. Emily is magnetic like that. The kind of person people are drawn to. The kind of person you notice across a room. And that's exactly what happened. I spotted her instantly, tucked off to the side near the back bar, standing just a little too close to a guy I recognized from old office stories. David. I remembered the name because she mentioned him more than once, usually in passing, always in the same tone she used for other coworkers. I never thought much of it before, but in that moment, something in me stilled. She was laughing at something he said, the kind of laugh that comes easy, free and unguarded. Her hand was resting on his wrist, lightly, the way you do with someone when you're not thinking about who might be watching. Her body leaned in just slightly, like she wasn't in a room full of people but having a private moment. And the expression on her face. God. It wasn't anything scandalous or overt, just comfortable, familiar, as if this wasn't new. And then her eyes caught mine. Everything shifted. Her posture straightened. She stepped back so fast you'd think she'd been burned. The laugh stopped mid-sentence, and her hand dropped to her side like it had never been there. She tucked her hair behind her ear and smiled. Too wide, too quick, and waved me over like nothing had happened. I remember the exact words she said. There you are. I was starting to think you weren't coming. I smiled, said something about traffic, kissed her on the cheek. But I noticed the way she flinched. Not enough for anyone else to see, but enough for me. David turned toward me, all smooth confidence and firm handshake. Hey man, I've heard a lot about you. He grinned like we were old friends, like he hadn't just been making my wife laugh in a way I hadn't seen in weeks. Emily introduced us and we made small talk, very small. My mind wasn't in the conversation. I kept thinking about her body language, the way her smile dimmed the second she saw me. And I knew, in the part of my gut that always tells the truth, that I hadn't imagined it. The rest of the night passed in a blur of pleasantries and polite nods. I stayed close, not in a possessive way, just observant, watching. Emily stuck by me more than usual, laughing a little louder, holding my hand when she didn't need to. It felt performative, like she was overcorrecting for something I wasn't supposed to have seen. And maybe in another life I would have brushed it off. Maybe I would have told myself I was being dramatic, jealous even. But this wasn't coming out of nowhere. It was just the first time something undeniable had happened in front of me. After we left the banquet, we didn't talk about it. We drove home with the radio low, her fingers tapping the steering wheel in rhythm. She asked if I had fun. I said yeah. She smiled. We went to bed. But I didn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathing beside me, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I didn't recognize the person lying next to me. Not entirely. I started replaying that scene over and over in my mind. How close they stood, the way she laughed, how quickly she pulled away. What was that? Just harmless workplace banter? A fleeting moment taken out of context? Or was it something else? Something deeper that had been building while I wasn't looking? It's a terrible thing when doubt enters a relationship. It doesn't walk in loudly. It doesn't scream or shatter the walls. It drips, slow and quiet, into the cracks you didn't even realize were there. And that night something dripped. I wish I could say I confronted her then and there. I didn't. I convinced myself that I needed more, that it was just a moment. But the truth? I was afraid of the answer. afraid that if I asked her what was really going on, I wouldn't be able to handle the truth she gave me, or worse, the lie she told instead. For the next few days, I paid more attention. Little things. Her phone buzzed more than usual. Nothing out of place, really. Just small upticks. She laughed more at her screen. Didn't leave it lying around like she used to. I tried not to be the paranoid husband, but I started noticing things I used to ignore. One night, she was doing laundry, and I saw a new perfume bottle in the cabinet. Expensive, elegant. One I didn't recognize. "When did you get this?" I asked. "Oh," she said, not even looking up. "Birthday gift from the girls at the office." I nodded. Let it go. But something about that answer didn't sit right. Emily's birthday was 2 months ago. I started wondering what else I'd missed. What other things she'd brushed off with an easy smile, and I had just believed. I trusted her. Implicitly. Blindly. But now I was starting to wonder if that trust had become a weakness. Was I seeing shadows where there were none? Or had she just gotten really good at leaving the lights off? The worst part was how normal everything felt on the surface. She still kissed me goodbye in the mornings. Still asked how my day was. Still laughed at my dumb jokes. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted beneath all that. Like the floorboards of our relationship had loosened, and I was the only one hearing them creak. I kept coming back to that one moment, her hand on his wrist, the ease in her body, the way it all disappeared the second she saw me. It was like a scene from a movie, and I was the extra who accidentally walked into frame, not realizing the story had already started without him. Was I overthinking? Maybe. But something in me had changed that night. A crack had formed. And once you see it, once you really see it, you can't pretend it's not there. After the banquet, things didn't fall apart. Not all at once. That's not how it works. What happens is more subtle. Life keeps moving, routines stay intact, and from the outside, everything still looks fine. But inside, things start to shift. Quietly, inwardly. Like a hairline fracture you only notice once the wall starts crumbling. That night stayed with me. I couldn't get it out of my head. Not just the moment itself. Emily's hand on David's wrist, that easy smile, the way she flinched when she saw me, but everything it implied. The familiarity, the int asterisk Macy, and her reaction. That was the biggest thing. If nothing was wrong, why did she freeze like that? I tried to let it go, at least on the surface. I didn't ask questions. Didn't bring it up. But once the seed of doubt was planted, it grew fast. And the more I tried to ignore it, the louder it got. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. Emily had always been ambitious. Her job in marketing demanded long hours, especially during launch cycles. I was proud of her for that. But suddenly, those late nights weren't occasional anymore. They were constant. 3, sometimes 4 nights a week. She'd come home after 10 p.m., claiming she was swamped. She always looked tired, stressed, but polished, like she'd spent more time in front of a mirror than a spreadsheet. Then there were the weekend trips. Every couple of weeks, she'd announce she was heading out of town to visit a friend, usually one from college. I used to encourage those getaways. I thought they helped her unwind. But then I noticed she always took the same overnight bag. Always left early Saturday morning and came back Sunday night, sometimes late. No pictures, no texts, just vague summaries when she returned. Yeah, it was great. We just hung out and watched movies. Or, the usual. Wine, catching up, girl talk. I wanted to believe her. I did. But the version of her that came back from those trips was different. She smelled different. Once, she came back wearing a new perfume I'd never smelled before. Subtle, floral, expensive. When I asked about it, she just said it was a sample her friend gave her. I wanted to trust her. I really did. But things weren't adding up. Her phone became another red flag. Emily used to be so relaxed about it. She'd leave it on the table during dinner, let it charge on the nightstand, hand it to me if she needed something Googled while she was cooking. But now, it was glued to her hand. Always face down. Always locked. She took it with her to the bathroom, to the laundry room, even into the backyard when watering the plants. Once, I saw a message preview pop up before she tapped the screen. Just a name, David. The same David from the banquet. I didn't say anything. I just swallowed the suspicion and pretended not to notice. But it didn't stop there. There were new clothes, tight dresses, heels I hadn't seen before. I asked once, casually, "New outfit?" She smiled and said it was from a sale she found online. The tag from a boutique still hung in the closet, triple what she claimed she'd paid. There were gifts too. Little things she claimed were from colleagues, coffee shop gift cards, a necklace she wore out one night, a scarf I never saw her wear again. She'd explain them away with ease. Too easily. Like she'd already prepared the answer before I even asked. One night, we were watching TV when her phone buzzed. She picked it up fast, smiled, typed something quickly, then set it down face down again. I asked, "Who was that?" She hesitated a beat too long before saying, "Just Stacy from work." But her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, and her body turned slightly away from me. It was subtle, but I saw it. I started staying up later, just watching her. Not in a creepy way, just trying to figure her out. Trying to figure out if I was imagining things. Hoping I was. But then came the night I found her standing by the window at 1 a.m., phone in hand, smiling down at the screen with the kind of expression you can't fake. Not that late. Not when you think you're alone. When she noticed me, she jumped slightly and turned the phone off. Said she couldn't sleep. Said she was just checking emails. I nodded and said nothing. I knew something was going on. I didn't have the proof, not yet, but my gut was screaming at me. And I hated that. I hated being suspicious. I hated how it made me feel. Like I was snooping, like I was paranoid, like I was turning into someone I didn't want to be. But what was I supposed to do? Pretend I hadn't seen what I'd seen? Keep lying to myself? I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wasn't ready. I didn't want another carefully crafted lie. I wanted the truth. So I started paying closer attention. I reviewed our shared bank account, nothing glaring. A few extra charges at restaurants. One hotel transaction in a city 2 hours away from the girls' trip she said she'd taken. When I asked her about it, she said the Airbnb fell through and they had to switch to a hotel last minute. She even offered to show me the receipt. I declined. I checked her calendar when she left it open on her laptop. One entry was blocked out for a Friday night. Client dinner, 7:30 p.m. But the restaurant reservation came through our shared rewards account, and it was for 2 people. Not a group. Just 2. When I asked how dinner went, she barely looked up from her phone. "Oh, fine. Long, exhausting. You know how those things go." Except I didn't know. I wasn't part of that world anymore, was I? Our conversations became surface level. I'd ask about her day, and she'd give me 5-word answers. I'd mention plans for the weekend, and she'd say she was already booked. When I tried to bring up how distant we felt, she said I was imagining things. "I'm just busy," she said. "Everything's fine. You're overthinking it." Maybe I was. Maybe not. But something had changed. She used to laugh with me. Now she laughed at her phone. She used to ask about my day. Now I had to volunteer it, and even then, she barely responded. She used to say, "I love you," without prompting. Now, she only said it after I did, and even then, it felt like muscle memory. One night, she fell asleep before me, and I just watched her breathe. I thought about how many times I'd looked at her like that before. Peaceful, safe mind. But this time, I felt like a stranger. Like I was lying next to someone I used to know. And that scared me more than anything. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted to wake up one day and realize it was all in my head. That David was just a coworker. That the perfume really was a gift. That the texts were innocent. That the cracks I saw were just stress, work, normal life wearing us down. But my heart knew better. The way she looked at him. The way she stopped looking at me. The cracks were getting wider. And I was starting to see through them. It happened on a Tuesday. Nothing dramatic. No confrontation. No shouting. Just a charger. That's how it started. Emily had left her gym bag in the hallway. She was upstairs, in the shower, and I was on my way out the door, late for work, when I realized my phone battery was at 2%. I remembered seeing a charger cord poking out of the side pouch on her gym bag the day before, so I figured I'd just borrow it. She always used the same type. I unzipped the side pocket. That's when I saw it. At first, I didn't process what I was looking at. Just a flash of black plastic, a screen reflecting the hallway light. I pulled it out slowly, another phone. Not hers. Not mine. A second phone. Slim, older model. No case, just bare. And it was on. Unlocked. My heart stopped. I stared at it for a second, like it might explain itself. But it didn't. It just sat there in my hand, humming faintly, like it had been waiting to be found. I glanced upstairs. The water was still running. I had maybe 5 minutes. My fingers moved before my brain could catch up. I opened the Messages app. The most recent thread was with a name I recognized instantly. David. Of course. I tapped it. My breath caught. It wasn't just flirty texts. It wasn't vague "you up?" messages. This was a full-blown second life. Photos from hotel rooms. Selfies of them together, smiles too wide, faces too close. *TS of flight confirmations. Dinner reservations. Entire plans laid out like itineraries. Some of it made me sick to read. Jokes at my expense. Comments about how clueless I was. How he still doesn't suspect a thing. But the worst part wasn't what they said. It was the timestamps. Everything matched. The client dinners. The girls' weekends. The late nights at work. Every moment I had doubted myself, questioned my instincts, let her convince me I was overreacting. They were all there. Backed up. Confirmed. Right in front of me. I kept scrolling. I shouldn't have, but I couldn't stop. There were threads with hotel booking confirmations. Notes about meeting on the 3rd floor so no one sees. Messages from her. "I miss you already," followed by heart emojis and selfies in the office bathroom. There was one photo that did it for me. It was her, in the dress she said she bought just for fun. The one she never wore around me, standing in front of a hotel mirror. The caption said, "For you. Tonight, face blowing a kiss." The date? Same weekend she told me she was helping her college roommate move. I put the phone down like it burned me. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing, but not in the way it does when you're angry. It was deeper than that. A kind of cold, hollow dread that starts in your stomach and crawls outward until even your fingers feel numb. I zipped the bag shut and put the phone back exactly where I found it. Same angle. Same position. Like I hadn't touched it at all. The water was still running upstairs. I walked into the kitchen and sat down. I stared at nothing for a long time. My coffee had gone cold, and I didn't even realize it until I took a sip and nearly gagged. It wasn't denial anymore. It wasn't suspicion. It wasn't paranoia. It was fact. She was cheating on me. She had been cheating on me. And not just a one-time mistake. This wasn't a drunken lapse or a bad decision made in the moment. This was deliberate, repeated, organized. She had built an entire system to hide it. A second phone. A secret routine. A script. And I'd fallen for it. I didn't confront her. Not then. I heard the water turn off upstairs. The floorboards creaked as she walked into the bedroom. I stood up, poured my coffee down the drain, and left for work without saying goodbye. I don't think she even noticed. I spent the entire day in a daze. I don't remember what I worked on. I know I talked to people, smiled even, but none of it registered. I felt like a ghost moving through a world I didn't belong in anymore. That night, I couldn't look at her the same way. She came home late, said her meeting ran long, kissed me on the cheek, told me she was exhausted. I just nodded and said, "You should get some rest." And she smiled. That smile, God, I used to love that smile. Now it felt like a mask, like something worn for my benefit, not hers. I didn't sleep much that night. I lay awake in the dark, listening to her breathe beside me, wondering how many nights she'd laid in other beds with other breaths beside her, wondering if she ever thought of me at all when she was with him. The next morning, while she was in the shower again, I checked the bag. The phone was gone, moved, hidden, probably even powered down. She knew how to cover her tracks. I didn't expect otherwise. But it didn't matter. I had seen enough, and something inside me shifted that day. Part of me hardened. Not out of spite, not out of revenge, but survival, self-preservation. I realized something very clearly. I couldn't confront her yet. Not like this. Not empty-handed, emotionally raw, waiting for her to spin a new lie I might almost believe. No, if I was going to deal with this, I needed to be smarter than that. I needed a plan. So I started collecting everything. Bank statements, phone records, *TS from the shared cloud I was still linked to. Little things she probably forgot were still being synced. Travel dates, calendar entries, dinner reservations, Uber receipts from cities she was never in. Every late night, every trip, every inconsistency. I logged it all. I printed them, filed them, made copies, made backups. I became an archivist of my own betrayal. It was cold work, clinical, but it gave me purpose. And oddly enough, a kind of calm. There's something empowering about finally knowing the truth. Even if it breaks your heart. At least it's your heart you're holding, not someone else's version of it. She kept lying to me, every day. And I let her, because I wasn't ready to end it yet. Not until I had control. I started seeing her differently. The little tells, the shifts in tone, the way she always had just the right excuse ready. I watched it all unfold, like a movie I'd already seen before. She didn't notice. Not once. I was still the same husband to her. Kind, patient, clueless. But I wasn't. I knew everything now. And I was preparing. The thing about betrayal is that once it's out in the open, once you really see it, you don't go back to sleep. You don't wake up and make eggs like it's a normal morning. You don't kiss them goodbye at the door. Not because you can't, but because you've already started the process of leaving. Even if your feet haven't moved yet, your heart is halfway gone. But I didn't leave. Not yet. I played along. The decision not to confront Emily wasn't born out of fear. It wasn't indecision. It was clarity, cold, clinical clarity. If I charged in, fists full of *TS and heartbreak, she'd twist it, cry, deflect, accuse me of snooping, maybe even blame it on stress or loneliness or some vague, abstract phase. I knew the script. I'd seen it in movies, heard it from friends who'd been through the same hell. The moment you give the cheater a spotlight, they rewrite the story to paint themselves as misunderstood, cornered, human. No, I wasn't going to hand her that power. So I stopped reacting. The nights she came home late, I smiled and asked how her meeting went. The weekends she disappeared with an overnight bag. I wished her safe travels and offered to help load the car. When she texted furiously during dinner, I'd excuse myself and give her space. Let her feel like she still had the upper hand. Let her believe I hadn't caught on. But behind the scenes, I was moving pieces. I started by opening a new bank account in my name only. Quietly. No email alerts. No paper statements to the house. Just a clean slate. Then I set up a secure cloud folder and dumped everything I'd gathered. Photos, phone records, itinerary comparisons. Even **TS of calendar appointments cross-referenced with GPS logs from our shared car. Felt obsessive, maybe even paranoid. But it was real, and I wasn't going to let her rewrite that reality later. Next came the legal prep. I made an appointment with a divorce attorney. Her name was Carla. She came highly recommended, sharp, experienced, and unshakably calm. I walked into her office with a manila folder under my arm and the truth on my face. She didn't look surprised when I told her what was going on. Just nodded and said, "Let's make sure you don't walk away empty-handed." We reviewed everything. She asked questions. I answered them. We built a timeline. It was surreal, sitting across from a stranger and detailing the disintegration of my marriage like it was a business meeting. But it helped. Gave me structure, purpose. Something solid to hold onto while the emotional ground underneath me kept shifting. Carla gave me a checklist. Heavy checkmark, is your name on the mortgage? Heavy checkmark, do you have access to joint accounts? Heavy checkmark, any shared investments, retirement plans? Heavy check mark any documentation of her infidelity that's time-stamped and independently verifiable? Yes, 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 and yes. You're ahead of the curve, she said, almost impressed. You're going to be okay. I nodded. I didn't feel okay, but I would be. At home, I became a ghost with a calendar. I tracked everything. Every excuse she gave. Every hole in her story. Every night she came back smelling like a different cologne. Something earthy and musky that I didn't wear. I noticed the way she started sleeping farther away from me. Not a dramatic shift, just a few inches at a time. A slow drift toward detachment. She started humming while texting. I don't know why, but that one cut the deepest. Something about her happiness, her private, secret joy, while I sat 3 feet away made me feel invisible. But I didn't show it. I played my part. The loyal husband. The fool. And while she laughed with him in hotel rooms and messaged him good night from the guest bathroom, I built a firewall around my future. I updated my will. Changed my emergency contacts. Made a private list of what I wanted to keep and what I'd be willing to let go. I started backing up all my photos, my music, my documents. Not just because I was preparing to leave, but because I knew she wouldn't expect it. Cheaters don't think they'll be left. They think they'll be caught, maybe, cried at, fought with, but they never think the other person will go quiet. Calm. Cold. She didn't notice the shift in me. Or maybe she did and mistook it for emotional numbness. Distance. A man retreating out of hurt instead of strategy. She started leaving her second phone at work. Or maybe with him. I stopped checking the gym bag. I didn't need more evidence. I already had the truth. But I kept documenting everything. Not because I needed to prove it to myself anymore, but because the law needs proof. And I was playing for the long game now. Not just revenge. Resolution. One night she came home early. Brought takeout. Thai food, my favorite. I thought we could do a movie night, she said, setting the bags down like nothing had ever happened. We haven't had one in forever. It was almost cruel. I nodded, smiled, kissed her on the forehead. Sure. Sounds great. We sat on the couch, shared spring rolls, watched a comedy we both loved. She laughed in all the right places, even leaned her head on my shoulder for a moment. For a split second it felt normal. But it wasn't, because I knew where she'd been the night before, knew what she'd worn, knew the room number, knew the timestamps, and all I could think about was how easily she switched masks. When the movie ended, she curled up next to me and whispered, I really missed this. I almost laughed, but I didn't. I just whispered back, me too. Then I excused myself and went to bed early. Laid there in the dark and stared at the ceiling, my mind already 6 steps ahead, because soon this game would be over, and she had no idea the credits were about to roll. There's a specific kind of silence that sets in when you know the end is coming, but no one else does. It's not peaceful or quiet in the meditative sense. It's tense. Still. Like the final breath before a storm breaks the sky open. That's where I was living, inside that breath. Emily, on the surface, seemed as comfortable as ever. She laughed at my jokes again. Asked about my day. Started wearing her wedding ring more often. As if that tiny circle of gold could erase everything she'd already shattered. But I knew better. The shift in her behavior wasn't love. It was complacency. Confidence. She thought I'd settled back into the role of the blind husband. That whatever tension had been growing between us had passed. And that was fine. Let her think that. The less she suspected, the better. Because behind the curtain, I was finishing my work. Every night, after she went to bed or disappeared into long showers with her phone clutched like a diary, I would open my laptop and double-check the evidence. Reorganize the folders. Name every file clearly with date stamps and supporting context. I had photographs, message logs, location data, bank statements. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was casework. I wasn't just documenting her betrayal. I was building an escape route through it. My lawyer, Carla, kept things moving in the background. We met quietly, always during work hours, always away from home. She was precise, clinical even, and never once tried to comfort me with phrases like, you deserve better. That's what I appreciated most. She dealt in facts, and the facts were now in my favor. We filed the initial paperwork. Quietly, deliberately. All it needed was a date for delivery, and I chose that carefully. I wanted it to hit when she least expected it. But I wasn't just preparing legal armor. I was detangling my life from hers, thread by thread. First, I opened a P.O. box. Any mail I didn't want her to see, bank confirmations, attorney correspondence, private financial transitions, I routed there. I even moved some of my online shopping accounts over, just so I'd have something normal-looking tied to the address in case she ever stumbled across it. Next, I created a duplicate set of essential documents: birth certificate, social security card, health insurance. I stored everything in a fireproof lockbox under the spare tire in my car trunk. I know how paranoid that sounds, but once you've lived through lies that fluent, that cleanly delivered, you stop leaving anything to chance. I began separating our finances slowly. I stopped using the joint card and started making purchases only with my new account. I reviewed every subscription service, every automatic bill, and reassigned what was mine. I moved my paycheck deposit, set up a new savings account, canceled credit authorizations she could use. She didn't notice. Or maybe she noticed just enough to tell herself a convenient story. Michael's being responsible with money again. It fit the character she'd assigned me in her head. Practical, predictable, harmless. That's what made this so easy. She'd underestimated me. She thought she still had control. On weekends, I'd disappear for an hour or two. Said I was running errands, going to the hardware store. In reality, I was opening a safety deposit box, meeting with a realtor about small, short-term rentals, walking through storage units and calculating square footage. Every one of her lies pushed me further down the path of freedom. And still she smiled at me. Still she kissed me goodnight. There were moments, fleeting ones, where I almost let the mask slip, where I wanted to scream, "How do you lie to me like this? How do you come home from another man's bed and act like we still have a marriage?" But I didn't. I held the line, because the finish line was in sight. I had already *N packing certain things. The sentimental items, my old journals, the watch my grandfather gave me, photos she never cared about. I wrapped them carefully and stored them in the trunk. Quiet theft. I took my life back in fragments. The rest, the joint clutter, things that didn't matter, I left untouched. Meanwhile, I watched her continue her performance. She started planning a trip for us. Out of nowhere. She brought it up one night while we were watching a movie. Something about needing a break. About us time. "We haven't been away together in ages," she said, leaning into me. "It might be good for us." It was like a bad joke. She said it so easily, like she hadn't already been away with him more times than she could count. But I smiled and said, "Yeah, maybe." She pulled out her phone and started looking at hotels. For a second, I wondered if it was guilt, if this was her clumsy way of atoning. But I knew better. It wasn't remorse. It was maintenance. She was keeping the illusion alive, smoothing over the cracks before I noticed them. Except I'd already seen through the wall. One night, I stayed up while she slept, sitting alone in the kitchen, staring at the fridge. It still had the stupid magnet from our anniversary trip to Asheville. We'd stood in a gift shop arguing over which one to get. I remember that version of us. Still in love, still choosing each other every morning. That version was gone now, replaced by performance and secrets. I checked the calendar. The company had another event coming up soon, something smaller than the banquet, just a dinner with clients and department heads. She mentioned it casually, said it was just her and a few teammates, said I didn't need to come. It was boring stuff, anyway. She smiled when she said it. I nodded, played along. But I had already decided. That was going to be the night. The night everything ended. The night I handed her the truth. The night I left the game. At the company dinner, I watched her glide through the room, charming as ever. She didn't see me leave. Before I walked out, I slipped a sealed folder, photos, texts, the divorce filing, into her handbag. By the time she got home, the locks were changed. Her clothes were boxed by the door. No screaming, no drama. Just silence, truth, and the end she never saw coming. Word spread fast. David resigned. Emily faced HR inquiries and icy stares. Her web unraveled without my help. She called, begged, promised change, but I didn't answer. I cut every tie. No more shared accounts. No more lies in my home. The betrayal no longer owned me. I moved on lighter than I'd felt in years. The collapse of our life? It wasn't destruction. It was freedom finally taking form.